Welcome back, Lelanders, to a new episode of Ley Lines, covering Element 115, the anti-gravity research that solves the mystery of how UFOs at Area 51 work. I know it sounds like a pretty big topic and wild thing to discuss, but I figure it's kind of fitting because today also marks, or this week marks, the 5-year anniversary of when I had my big injury and started working on gravity well maps as part of my rehab. So that's pretty wild. I was kind of shocked that it's been 5 years already, but hey, better slow than never, right? So, alright, let's discuss where to begin first. I guess just to summarize what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about Bob Lazar, his work on element 115, and how the element's properties actually connected to some of the research and gravity well lines or ley line research that I do every day, I guess, for 5 years now. So it was kind of a wild breakthrough. I never really saw it coming, although I was kind of leaning towards it because I was like, you know what, this gravity well research has taught me everything from how weather works to earthquakes to continental drift to meteor impacts to forest fires. So I was kind of thinking, you know what, or even human evolution, but another thing I was thinking, geez, it's only a matter of time before I figure out how this connects to space travel and space engines and ships. So I don't know, kind of a really deep topic today, and I just came up with the research today, so I'm not an expert by any means, a scientist, just an amateur. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, and if you want to put anything in the comments or chat below to contradict or confirm my research or just general comments, really appreciate it. Alright, so where to begin first? Alright, maybe let's begin with the Bob Lazar part of the story. He was actually a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, so if anyone wants to get more information, I highly recommend taking the information from Bob Lazar himself, because a lot of what you find about him on the internet isn't accurate at all, especially when you compare it to what he said on the Joe Rogan show. So some people might be like, oh, what you're saying about Bob Lazar isn't lining up with what's written on Wikipedia. Well, most of what Bob Lazar says doesn't align with what's written about him on Wikipedia, so we'll cover that first. Alright, so Bob Lazar, let me minimize so I can see it, and we'll make it bigger on this side so people watching on mobile devices have a better chance of reading along. Alright, so Bob Lazar was, or is, an American businessman, and a word we're not allowed to say on YouTube, and who claims he was hired in the late 1980s to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology. This work was supposedly done at a S-Force facility that's close to Area 51. Forget, south of it or something. So that's why I keep referring to it as Area 51, even though it's technically S4. Alright, so Bob Lazar has no evidence of alien life or technology. So that's a big one, is he made the claims about the anti-gravity element we're talking about on the show today. And he made those claims arguably in the 1980s. And the element was only synthesized in the year 2000s, like maybe 2002 or 7, somewhere around there. So Bob Lazar does not have a perfect credibility history. And this is another reason I kind of believe him a little bit more, is when people are like saints or whatever, it's hard to believe what they're saying. But if he has an active background of some wild things going on, it sounds more legit to me. But to each their own, right? You might take that as the opposite. So it says that elements of his claimed education and employment history have been exaggerated or fabricated. So here's the thing, that apparently he went to a school and the records of him being there have been erased. So some people might think, oh, that's impossible. When would a school or any cover-up occur? Well, we can see in the past year's events, even when it comes to a certain podcast host, how they've been basically deleted and canceled from society and ostracized. Sort of like how the Egyptian pharaohs, when their reign was over, sometimes their legacy would be erased or chiseled right off the walls. So there's always going to be that debate. Did he or did he really attend these schools? To me, it doesn't even really matter his education background, because when you hear him talk, you can tell that he's like above average intelligence. So obviously he could be lying about all the stuff he's talking about, or he does know something, or he just made it up and it happens to be really accurate. So I don't know what the actual deal of it all is, but we'll try to speed through here. So he was also involved in criminal activity, apparently. I think he pled guilty to a lesser degree of some sort of prostitution ring, and for selling illegal chemicals, probably related to his business. So a lot of credible people have looked at Lazar's story and rationally concluded that he made it up. If I had to guess with any story, there's probably elements of truth. Is it all true? I really doubt it too, but who knows? From what I heard on him describe on Joe Rogan podcast, he's been rather consistent through his entire time telling the stories. So a lot of his things really haven't changed. I get it that it's a topic that's very irrational, so the idea that it's not rational would make total sense. If it's all made up, I don't know. The whole element part, right? Could he have really predicted an element that would be used for anti-gravity that wasn't even invented till decades later, and then it was? That'd be quite the story to make up and then have it come true, but... Oh, so that's cool. He graduated in the bottom third of his class, and the only science he took was a chemistry class. I was lucky that I was failing school pretty badly too, but I took a wide variety of subjects. I got to go into science and applied. So it was like we had auto body shops, electronic shops, got to wire houses, build circuit boards, use oscilloscopes to look at electricity fields, calculate them with the math part of it. It's interesting how a lot of that actually applies to eclipses and figuring out like the solstice and the equinox wave patterns. It's amazing how many of it actually coincides. Like what is it, Da Vinci would say that learn how to see when you see that all things connect. Something like that, paraphrasing. Alright, so Lazar claims to be a physicist and worked at Los Alamos facility. So there were some weird interviews about that, how he could go into the facility and everyone knew him by name, but they said he had never worked there. So who knows, maybe he was a contractor and he never officially worked there, who knows. Yeah, we're not going to talk too much more about Bob Lazar's background, but he does claim to have propulsion or worked on the propulsion or studied vehicles that ran on antimatter reactors. That's interesting. So I never heard the antimatter part on Joe Rogan show, but I did hear about it was fueled by the chemical element 115. So that's the one that we're going to be talking about and how it relates to gravity wells and ley lines. So that's why I really had to bring up Bob Lazar, because he was talking about this long before anyone else has been. And had not yet been created. So when did he make that cream? So I was thinking it's the 1980s, and then it was later synthesized in 2003. So if anyone wants to calculate that, I think it's over 20 years that he predicted it first. Alright, he said that the propulsion system relied on a stable isotope of 115, which is, I think, impossible to make stable at this point, or at least for very long, which allegedly generates a gravity wave that allowed the vehicle to fly and evade visual detection by bending light around it. Alright, so that coincides exactly to what we've been talking about today. The idea that gravity wells bend things around them rather than pull them in. That's a big thing when it comes to propulsion, right? No stable isotopes yet have been synthesized. All have proven extremely radioactive, decaying in a few hundred milliseconds. So that's good news. When we get the technology to work with 115 efficiently, that should solve all of our problems we've had with radioactive cleanups. It looks like that's related technology. So as bad as all the meltdowns coming are or that have occurred, at least it should lead us to the technology to clean it. Hey, Steadfast is in the chat. I'm on a screen that doesn't have chat right now, I guess. Or there it is. Let me try to make that one. Ah, there we go. Holy crap, 3 viewers and a like. Thanks, everyone. So Steadfast says, with the Earth knocked off its axis, how will that impact accuracy of ley lines? Right, so that topic actually goes into how the ley line maps are calculated. So we'll answer that one quickly, and then we'll come back to the research here. I'll try not to get too off track. I was just looking at the meteor impacts to see if I could find the folder for it, and so far all the downloads I found aren't it, so that kind of sucks. What can you do? So I'll remove these for now. Oh yeah, and I'll put it on the Google Earth screen so everyone can see it a little better. Alright, so there's the map a little bigger. Yeah, there it is. Alright, so we'll kiss those ones goodbye for now. Alright, so when it comes to calculating the location of the equator, the tropic lines, the Arctic Circle line, we'll put those ones on with labels so we can see it. View grid. So you can see how the ley line map is calculated actually coincides with Arctic Circle line, the tropic line, the equator, the tropic line of Capricorn, and then the Antarctic Circle. And you can see I added the extra lines in between, but it really just takes the same formula and continues it. For some reason we don't map this one on our maps, but it is like the halfway point in between both of these, right? And then the only other difference is that each line is a full circle like the equator. So you do equator full circle lines out from the equator, and then the tropic lines, you do full circles for those too. Traditional maps, you can see that the circles get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's the difference. Instead of getting smaller, they're big circles. So how are all these lines calculated in the first place? I'm not sure if it goes officially by this, but see if I have the folder for it. No, what it does is there's something called the celestial equator. And there's like a point in space that's like an equator as well. So not just the Earth's equator, but the solar system's equator. And we line up to that. So wherever the celestial equator is where our equator will be, I think. Someone could correct me in the chat if I'm wrong like that. Maybe it's just a coincidence that those two line up right now. I'll see if I got the slide for it. I'll check it in Facebook quick. So that's what I was thinking. This celestial equator mark also changes over time. So we'll see it change because it changes at the speed of what our equator changes. So I think it's actually very slow in comparison to a human lifetime. Like we'd have to live thousands of years before we actually seen it move, even like a fraction. But we'll bring it up. I did make a slide for it and I called it celestial equator. So hopefully I can just do a quick search of my Facebook and we'll find it. It's because I'm on my backup computer. I don't have every photo in my actual hard drive, which what I'll do is eventually, yeah, there it is. Alright, so I'll download it. Yeah, now we'll be able to look at the celestial equator. Alright, we'll go back to this screen. Alright, so there's the celestial equator. You can see with the direction of our orbit, the celestial equator, you can calculate the pole tilt and all that stuff. And all these equations for the, what is it, the celestial equators, it just so happens to match the gravity well map. So that's why I was like, wait a minute, maybe those two are connected if they're so similar in form. I could be wrong and that's all coincidence. So I guess as our actual equator changes in a line to the celestial equator over thousands of years, then it will change a little. I actually made a map of the two changes. We could check those out too. Let's see. This was with the help of Julie Ryder's research. She mentioned this. The line that she focuses on here is this pink one that goes through Montana. That's the big one that she's always visiting sites. And she noticed, well, this is another line that goes through, what is it, the Great Pyramid, Easter Island, all those sorts of things. And then this third line is just a bunch of ancient sites in America that line up. So I noticed that that's about how much the celestial equator has changed since the pyramids and all that were built. So it's actually quite a bit that it's off, right? You can see it's almost the identical pattern. You'd have to shift it a little bit like that in order for it to fit in. But I was thinking too is maybe the planet's shape, because the planet is actually more of a, what is it called, a pear shape rather than a perfect sphere. So maybe that's where the bending of getting those two maps to line up perfectly comes in. So anyways, mine is the blue one, which is the current measurements, how they are today. And then the purple line one is the ancient sites. So there is a slight difference between the two, which could be the, like Steadfast question gets to, how has it changed over time? And I think too, there's probably been a drastic change in the past where it flipped completely 90, but definitely haven't got much material for, well, to share just yet on that. All right, so that's what we'll turn off the regular grid lines so people can just stick with the gravity well map for now. And we'll go back to discussing element 115, how it connects. Element 115. Now, I love element 115. I always dreamed that I would be one day trying to solve how it works and whatnot, but it's kind of shocking that we're actually doing it now. It's freaking me out a little bit. Alright, so anyways, Bob Lazar was working on like UFOs near Area 51 and working with one element 15. And they were trying to reverse engineer it so that they could figure out how to make it work. So I don't know, not to like undercut Bob's research, but that's what we'll be cutting through today, is going through how this element 115 actually works, right? How to reverse engineer it. Now I think probably, if I had to guess, they already figured out everything when it comes to the ship and how it works with 115, because it's actually pretty basic. Bob described it already. It has to do with the rotation. And that explains why UFOs are round shape or discs, because they're always spinning. And we'll go over why they're spinning in this. Alright, so predicted properties, nuclear stability. A lot of this is over my head. Oh, this is the one that came into a big thing here. So element 115 will behave similarly to its lighter congeners in many respects, or congeners. What this means is element 115, I believe, is a little bit heavier than it would be normally for its class of elements. So right off the bat, if you're working with gravity wells, you want something that'll be heavier. So there it fits right there, the extra heavy. And then the other part that fits into the gravity well research is spinning. So we'll talk about that next. So however, the notable difference is likely aside, the largely contributing effect is the spin-orbit interaction. So this is the spinning orbit reaction that we're covering in all the gravity well maps all the time. That's where I started to see the connection between the two. So the mutual interaction between the electrons and the motion and spin is especially strong for super heavy elements. So it holds the record, I think, for the fastest spinning. So if you wanted a fasting spinning artificial gravity well, This is why you would want to be using this element. Because their electrons move much faster than in lighter atoms at velocities comparable to the speed of light. So if you're harnessing the spin from this gravity well, it can push you to the point of near light speed. How freaking wild is that, right? Alright, let's get back to answering some of the comments from the chat. Hey, Maris, how's it going? Yeah, we're just talking about UFO technology today. We'll get back to some video gaming soon. But you're welcome to join in. Alright, so that's where I started to get into. Well, I found it first and came here to confirm it after, but that's where we were. Is this element is known for its weight and its spin velocity. So we'll get into why is spin velocity important for gravity well research. Let's check it out. Sorry, losing my voice here. It's not helping. Alright, there we go. So what we'll do for the gravity well map is every day or once or a few times a week, I'll turn on the weather formations. If anyone hasn't seen the weather formations, might be in for a bit of a treat. If it lines up today. We'll see. This is a real-time image, so we never know what it's going to be. Alright, so the weather is almost done loading. Now I like this one. This one's been pretty active under Australia for a while now. They show that the gravity well is causing a spin, but it's occurring just below the gravity well point. I think it's due because of the landmass there. But it is neat how you get that spin rotation around it. And a lot of times the arms, they follow the gravity well lines. Yeah, so there's a couple lined up today. Not really that many. Oh, here's the best one. This one's always usually a good one. So you get the spin around that well. Even a little bit of spin action going in those ones. So yeah, this gravity well spin affecting the cloud going across this way has been doing this, I don't know, for at least a week straight now. It may not look too overwhelming, the evidence for spinning around the orbs in this one. Couple of ones. We'll turn on an extra layer map, see if any of them line up then. Now the one around Norway, that's usually a popular one also. They got a lot of storms that spin around them. Yeah, so you can see this orb has a spin around it. It's feeding into this orb, which is spinning around it. Just spinning this one, spinning around it. So it's just a series of orbs and orbs, always spinning around clouds around them. Then we've seen the latest effects too, that it's not just the weather that spins around them. It's often the earthquake patterns as well. We'll go with 1900 and on. So you get that one spinning around. A lot of earthquakes spinning around that one. Oh yeah, this spin one here. So that's when I started to realize that it's not just the weather, it's earthquakes also. We did just a recent show on the forest fire one. I don't know, we'll see how many of the fires are going. So you get the fires spinning around the different gravity wells as well. A lot of them occurring right on the energy lines. So we covered that, the earthquakes, the smokes, the fire, the clouds. We can show it for meteors when I get the impact one. I guess we do have a little bit of impact ones. We could probably put, oh, I just deleted them. So today what I was noticing was I decided to look at the top of the planet. And this is where I had the breakthrough when it came through to understanding what element 115 was talking about. I was always looking at the top here and I'm like, hey, why is the land like so uniform to the triangle pattern on this side, but on the Canadian side it got smashed up in a weird way, right? I was trying to think that the wandering pole could wander around like that, and that's why the ice age cycle happens, is when the pole wanders around. So that's one of the reasons I was thinking that the land was all smashed up. But there's a second reason that I just came across today. Let's see if we can open that one. Alright, so the second reason, let's see. Ah, there it is. Gravity wells, anti-gravity technology is this. That's the reason why, I think, because I was thinking all these gravity well patterns and swirls, basically what we're looking at is a spiral pattern from one of those gravity wells that's the same as a black hole, it's the same as the spiral galaxies, and that's what's happening on the Earth, is we literally have this giant spiral gravity well, and that's why it's crushed the land the way it has. Look at the uniform pattern to the Russian side of it, and then you wonder why the North American side is in. It's the tighter arm. The outer arm stretches through Russia, and the tighter arm goes over North America, which has taken this giant landmass piece and crushed it over this way. So that's why it's drifting in this direction. It's following the swirl of the galaxy, or the gravity well swirls, I guess this way. Yeah, that way. Or no, that way. Ugh, getting backwards looking at myself in the reflection. So I was thinking, holy cow, this is what the element 115 is talking about. Let's bring up, where is it? The airfoil. That's the one that we need. So what I did is I looked up a web page actually from NASA talking about how airfoils work in wings, right? Anyone who's researched planes and the airfoil, I think that was grade 5 classes for me, so it's been a while, but I remembered some of it. Airfoils, how does it work? Here it is. Oh yeah, that's a crazy document, so we'll just bring this up. Alright, so an airplane's wing has a special shape called an airfoil. And the airfoil is shaped so that the air traveling over the top of the wing travels farther and faster than the air traveling below the wing. Thus, the faster moving air above the wing exerts less pressure than the slower moving air below the wing. So, get where I'm getting with that? The stronger pressure would be on the top side of the gravity well, and the lower pressure would be on the opposite side. So basically we have the same thing as an airfoil occurring around every gravity well. So you see what we have to do in order to make an engine actually use this to its advantage? You have to have a ship that's a circular pattern and it can spin so that the direction it's going is always in the direction of that outer band. So you don't want to be in the inner band unless you want to slow down, and you want to be in the outer band if you want to speed up. So if you can always change the direction of your ship to face that way, then you're set. You're always like on a hill going faster. if you're going in the direction with the flow. So I think with a wing, we're lucky that the wing is stable, and like going through the air is just like two-dimensional sort of, right? But once we get to this gravity well spinning, then that's why I think it's harder to match the ship always in the right direction. That's why you need the spinning UFO style ships. And I was thinking too, all you have to do to make this into a technology is to have a ship that has a gravity well that's artificial. You can spin the ship to match where it is, and now you're just stuck with the material. What material can you find to put in the ship to generate this artificial gravity well? What points do we need this material to do? It has to be able to spin fast, and it has to be able to be heavy in order to create a larger gravity well. Like, you can get smaller and smaller gravity wells, but the one we need is going to have to be huge if it's powering a ship, right? So that's where I think when it comes to element 115, we needed an element that was going to be able to spin fast and weigh more. So boom, did we not find it, right? So that is quite a bit of things. Here it is. So here it is, element 115. So that's why the UFOs are in a circular pattern, is because they're having to spin to match the gravity well field. Can you imagine how fast the UFO would have to be spinning too? If some of these fields spin at near the speed of light. Holy, that'd be a fast spinning ship, right? So it's pretty wild to think that Bob Lazar, how many years ago in the 1980s, was working on this technology. Can you imagine if the government has already been working on it all this time? Who knows how long they were working on it before he got to be working on it, right? So if anyone's interested into hearing more about this isotope or new element 115 and how it can be used to power gravity well technology, I think he's pretty much said it all already, right? Like, we know that it's a heavy element. It's got a crazy amount of spin to it it holds the record. Super heavy element. Yeah, it's weird to think too, like, to come across this technology link, what did we really need to do? It all resulted in just being able to understand the measurements of the equator and the tropic lines on the planet. Once we do that, then we can establish the gravity well points and where everything is spinning and why clouds are going around it. And then once we learn more about that spin, we learn that, hey, if we want to spin in that direction with the spin instead of going against it, we can go faster, possibly even upwards of the speed of light, according to the principles of element 115. So I'd just like to say congratulations to the guys working on element 115 and to Bob Lazar for pretty much getting all of their research confirmed even more so. I'm sure they've got a lot better evidence than what I do, but Jesus, I think we're really getting close to some pretty major breakthroughs in technology when we really have the basic principles of how gravity well technology works, how to build the UFOs and what they have to do in order to reverse engineer properly. They have to be able to match the gravity well spin, maybe even pick up the spin so that they can reach the same spin rate as the gravity well created by the heavy element 115. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other things that I wanted to cover. I guess we'll go over all the slides. Make sure I didn't miss any. Yeah, there was the properties of element 115. Here is the spinning arms on galaxies, where I started to realize, like, hey, this spin is like happening on gravity wells on so many different scales. The size of universes, the size of black holes, even hurricanes spinning around the gravity wells on the Earth. Yeah, you should check hurricane season in some of my maps when they come. It really looks wild. Yeah, and then there was the animation I made to show where the gravity well or giant spin occurs on the planet, one of the biggest ones on our pole, and how you can see how it shaped the continent from what it used to look like. Like if people want to see the before and after, what the continent used to look like and what it looks like now, see if I got it. Here's a pretty good one. See, scientists pretty much figured it out to the point where it was two gravity well shaped continents, how they fit into those yellow triangles. But they're trying to figure out why the Greenland space used to be like that, why it got smashed up, and why this part of it got crushed in this way. So we could see if the spin of the galaxy or gravity wells going in this direction, it would grab that, crush it in, bring it around it, right? So that's why we ended up having that continent move. I thought it was because of the drifting pole hitting it, but I think even the drifting pole wouldn't be as, well, it's probably the same force of the gravity well spinning. Bam! Moves it in. We'll see if we got the, oh, here it is. So you can see the before and after of the universe or gravity well spinning, and it smashed it. This is what it looks like today. You can sort of see where the arm is digging in. And then this is what it used to look like before it got smashed up. Alright, so we checked out that, the animation, that. The only last slide I had was the properties of element 115. It's got a high atomic weight for its size. Or for its class, whatever. Heavy element. Yeah, what are we going to do with the future of this? Well, I'm probably going to try sharing it, see how many people we can get to like, share, and sub. Who knows, maybe we could start doing gravity well research full time and get more guests on the show to talk about it. But right now, I'm just living up north, trying to find a new job. Job prospects here are somewhat starting to go better. Got interviews, so if anyone wants to help, and maybe we can go that direction instead of starting another job, but we'll see how it goes. Now, I appreciate everyone who supported me so far. We got all the patron links and everything below if you want to check all that stuff out, but we won't get into too many details because I don't want to make this one a super long show. Oh, we got 3 likes. Wow, really appreciate it. That's huge for a live stream at this time, especially on my channel. So, alright, thanks a million. I guess we'll wrap up today's episode, and yeah, if anyone wants to help share, if anyone knows Sabine, who does a really good science YouTube channel, I'd love to have a debate about her, or with her about gravity. So not maybe so much a debate, maybe just an open sharing, and let the viewers decide whose gravity well research they like best. I know she knows a lot about gravity, so it'd be fun to have her on. But or if I could be on her show, one or the other, but that'd be sweet. Or Joe Rogan Experience or Coast to Coast AM. If anyone wants to share it with them and say, hey, you should get Leland on the show to talk about ley lines and Area 51 and anti-gravity technology, I'd be more than willing to do it. Alright, so bye for now, everyone. Let's wrap up the show, where I'll go with the intro signals again. Just a collection of images I made of my favorite gravity well images. Alright, so thanks everyone. Bye for now. Oh yeah, and it also demonstrates how they move the land. So I think it's not only moving the land, but we can get them to move ships too. Let's check it out in the future, eh? Maybe Elon wants to watch and share. That'd be sick. Get this technology in space right away. Alright, bye for now everyone. See you later. Oh yeah, thanks for Steadfast, Best Girlfriend Ever, and Maris for tuning in the show. Have a good one. Later.